Yes.
Okay, here we go. Welcome to another week of Token. I'm Donna. Steven's here.
Steven's here.
Steven's here. Steven, what is Token?
It's a place where there's only red pills.
Oh, we keep it real. We keep it real. You gotta live in reality here.
Very much.
So if you haven't guessed already, our film this week is... Ooh, that's a bad drum. The Matrix. Da, 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 da. Steven,
Yes,
how many
The
times
Matrix.
have you watched The Matrix?
Oh, more times I can count. Like I haven't even. When it came out of the theater, I probably saw it 3 times, and that was again 99 or 2099. But since then, I've seen it countless times on TV and on DVD and VHS, DVD, whatever, every format, streaming. And then I got all up in the whole, like, this was the movie I think I nerded out like people do regularly now, like Game of Thrones. People are reading the books, people are on the forums, people are looking at theories, and I think this is the first movie I did that same thing with. Like I was on the internet, like AOL, back in the day, but I was on the internet dialing up, looking at forums, looking at fan theories and mythology and all sorts of stuff for the Matrix. And they came out with part 2, and then this spin-off animation DVD, which was the Animatrix, and had other stories inside the Matrix, and then part 3 and all of that. Yeah, I'd definitely seen this movie a lot.
Nerd alert. Okay, well.
Nerd alert.
You spent like 10 minutes talking. I've seen all the forums, and I use dial up in my room. And when I go to my room, I hit like dial up.
You guys remember dial up?
I saw 1, 2, 3, and I wrote out a couple of fans, a couple of movies myself. I don't know, man. Okay, so we'll give us the Matrix summary. What's the summary of the film?
Wait, how many times have you seen it?
Like twice, Steven. I'm not a nerd.
Of course, right.
I enjoy it, but I've only seen it like twice.
Oh, interesting. Okay, fascinating. All right. Yeah, The Matrix is it's a digital cross between Alice in Wonderland and like this savior figure story. Young hacker gets chased by government agents he thinks are after him for his past as a hacker. Then he finds out there's a whole new world that exists, and he has to learn how to navigate the world and his place within it, while still learning to believe in himself. Right. I think it's the first real pop culture like idea of simulation theory that presented simulation theory, which is this growing to prominence now as like a actual theory on reality that we have now, right? That we're actually living in a computer simulation run by probably like higher level beings or whatever, that a lot of theoretical physicists actually think is a high probability of being true.
They said God or this.
This.
Ain't no God. We in a computer. Ain't no God.
I think the way they explain it is that God would be the creatures that put us in the simulation, right? They created a simulation.
Not creatures, not my God.
It goes.
It's Sunday, Steven. I rebuke that.
It is Sunday.
It is creatures, Sunday. God, brain explode.
Snap her neck.
So yeah, The Matrix. So okay, you've seen it so many times. So 1 out of 10, what do you give it? I mean,
it's 10 out of 10. Matrix is one of the few movies that really never disappoints anytime I watch it. Yeah, it's dope.
I hadn't seen, I told you, like I saw it when it came out. I liked it. But I hadn't seen it since then. And watching it today, I was like, dang, this script is really good. This movie is really good. It made me think of The Tenet, right? Because The Tenet is a movie with like a big concept, idea, alternate world. And what's so like magical about The Matrix is that literally they explain it to you, maybe dribbling throughout, but they have only like 2 big explanations and it's easy to understand. Like you get it.
the entire time.
Right.
And it's funny because it made me think of Nolan's other film, which I thought was a much better just execution from Tenet, which was
Inception.
Thank you.
Inception.
Because it's a dream within a dream, right? And that's the whole thing here, is that the world you think is real is the dream, and then the real world is something totally different, right?
Right. I think though, I think what was different about this is that it's more grounded, right? Like it's not a dream. It is, you're in a simulation. Is that the word?
Mm-hmm.
It's more grounded. You're in a simulation designed by the robots. Boom. Like I feel like sometimes with like Christopher Nolan stuff, which I love Christopher Nolan, it's like even in Inception, it's still kind of like they never really kind of tie it down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of like why this started, what is the connecting factor to it, or any of that. So I think that's why with his sometimes it's hard to grasp, because you can't really get logically like why it happened. Like telling us robots took over the world. Oh yeah, I get that.
Easy. You get that.
Yeah, we afraid every day.
Yeah, we're already worried about robots taking over. Yeah. So it makes sense. Yeah.
Totally.
It is a tight script. It's a very tight script. It's so hard to find plot holes in it. It's so hard to find like there's not very many slow beats. Like it's very to be an action blockbuster, like 2+ hour movie. Yep. It's still really tight.
It's very good. It's very entertaining. So let's talk about our Black characters. We have obviously Morpheus, and then we had the other two Black characters I didn't even remember. I mean, given I hadn't seen this since like 1997, so maybe that's why I don't remember. But we have, what are the brothers' names? I forgot.
So we have the brothers, which are Tank, right, and Dozer. And Dozer's the bigger dude.
Okay.
Bigger dude with like the do-rag. And he's been on stuff, you know, he's a big dude. He's been on like Hercules and Xena and Spartacus. And Tank is the other brother who is he's actually been working for a long time through the 80s and 90s. Matrix is kind of like his height. And then after that, he ran his mouth and got fired from the second movie. So it ended up they had to kill him off, because I guess he was asking for too much money for the sequel, and was making threatening phone calls, threatening to blab about the script and put spoilers out in the world and stuff. So they just cut him. They were like,
you know what's so funny? I wouldn't be surprised if they were underpaying him.
I wouldn't either. I mean, he's like a third, like he's like a third lead. So so I wouldn't doubt if they were underpaying a lot of them, even though this was a huge blockbuster movie. And I think the second movie, I would have hoped that they were willing to give all of them a bump, because the movie made like 400 million worldwide. And I think way more than that on DVD and Blu-ray sales or VHS sales.
Ain't shit. So
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. So what did you think of each character? Oh, there's one more Black. I would say even though I don't know, I think the Oracle, I think she was Black.
So the Oracle is Black, and she used to be on like the Cosby Show and some other shows that she was in back in the day. And she passed away, I think, in 2004, 2005, something like that. But she's Black. And there's APOC, who is, I guess he's from New Zealand. So APOC is one of the ones. He didn't.
Is he Black? He didn't look Black.
No, he wasn't Black. I'm just talking about the other minority characters. He's Kiwi. He was Kiwi, New Zealand. I know, but I want to make sure. I give shouts and acknowledge everybody in here that's a POC, right?
Well, so then it ain't token no more. You want to change the show to token
POC in cinema? POC.
Yeah, POC in cinema.
POC.
No, it's token.
No. Well, I had to look him up because I thought he might be Black when I first saw him. I thought he might be mixed.
That's fair.
But he's not. I think he's Kiwi, so he's probably Maori or something. But yeah, Gloria Foster is the Oracle, and she does a great job too. Like such a good job.
So let's go through the characters. I guess should we start with the biggest, which is Morpheus, since he's like the bulk of it, or do you have any other characters you want to talk about, kind of their role and how they play?
I mean, the biggest role is by far going to be Morpheus, right. Which is what most people at this point probably know is Morpheus is arguably like the second most important character in this, right? Neo is of course the first, and most people already at this point have probably heard they originally offered the role to Will Smith, right?
What?
So, oh, you hadn't heard? Yeah,
Oh, Will,
yeah,
that would have been
yeah.
so dope.
Will was originally supposed to be Neo. So, and that when we get to it, talking about what the movie would have looked like, it would have probably been different, right? With Will in the lead. It was, they offered it to him at a time when he was like, he said like he was just sinking every shot. Like there's a video where he explains why he turned it down on YouTube too. It's great. But basically he says he had just finished, I think he said he had just finished, gotten Independence Day done, and it was really popular. They offered him Men in Black. He said he didn't want to do another Alien movie, but then Steven Spielberg called him up and was like, he didn't want to be known as the Alien guy. Steven Spielberg called him up and was like, you need to think about this. So he ended up doing Independence Day. And then when he met with the Wachowskis, they wanted to, they pitched it to him, but the way they pitched it, he said it was basically just describing all those bullet time scenes. They were like, imagine you're up in the air and jumping on somebody, and then they pause and the camera pans around you 360 degrees, and then you land and you kick them. And he was just like, okay, like he didn't understand the story based on the pitch that they gave him. And then he was also like, you know, they've only done one other movie, Bound, which is like a much more lower budget film. So he's like, I'm gonna pass, and he ended up going to do Wild Wild West instead.
Oh, God.
And so he's like, yeah, I regret it. You know, these things happen. but he did say that they also were looking at other actors for Morpheus. So if he had taken Neo, he's like, Morpheus probably wouldn't have been black. Morpheus would have been white, because Neo would have been black. So, and he said they were interviewing at the time Val Kilmer for it. So it would have been Val Kilmer as Morpheus, and Neo would have been Will Smith.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That would have been, that's a good mix too. So so people say this all the time, do you qualify Morpheus as a magical Negro? Because I feel like if there's the magical Negro, it would be the Oracle.
The Oracle is she's like definitely the magical Negro. I mean, she's there to dispense information, tell you what you need to know and all that. Morpheus, it's interesting because Morpheus is he is a magical Negro archetype. He fits into it pretty well. He's there to help the protagonist, who's the white character, like discover his abilities and go off to lead and save the world. But I'll give Morpheus his character credit, because his character, whether it was played by Val Kilmer or Lawrence Fishburne, Lawrence played him with such nuance and such personality that he understood his role was to save the world by basically finding this ultimate weapon that was going to go save the world, right? And so Morpheus, he is definitely a magical Negro, but I think in this respect he's more because like the name Morpheus is like, I think Greek or Roman, right? And it comes from, Morpheus was like the god of dreams, the god of sleep. And so I think it fits for his character, right? He's waking people up from their slumber and waking them up into the real life. And so his entire role here is to be the determined, like he is steering the ship, right? He's the apex, he's the leader, he's the one guiding everybody. Neil's kind of the weapon here, right? Morpheus is like, we need to find this to stop this. We need to find him to stop this. I believe he's the one. I believe he's the one. He's the one. And of course, the one is going to be the Superman, the Jesus, the hero, savior character. But in this respect, if Neo is Jesus, then Morpheus is God. Like he's the one that's going to get this and use this person, this thing to save mankind, right?
Yeah. Also, just FYI, because I remember people comparing this to like God and Jesus.
Yeah.
And I can see that, but that's also not how it works with Jesus.
No.
So like God isn't like looking for him. Like
no, it's not.
It was that's just me Bible. Because I remember like hearing that, so I was watching for it, and I could see some of like the like parallels, but then I was like, well, this doesn't really work with like the Jesus, but I guess because he's like the one, like you could say that, but like the way that like Jesus comes into the world, it's like, so it wasn't like, I've seen movies where like that is actually more lined up than I think
more present.
I think there's like I see the overall framing of that, but it doesn't line up to that story as much as I thought. It's still there, but it's not. It's there.
Well, it's the savior archetype. This definitely isn't. Well, I guess you could argue it's a Trinity, right? And they even have a character named Trinity and all that. But it's the savior archetype. It's not directly a God, Jesus, like.
Yeah, I thought
parallel.
That normally, like I definitely see the savior the world, but I don't remember. I remember people talking about it, so I was like, oh, it's gonna line up more, and I was like, this isn't really how it works in the Bible. But I see what people think that.
No, but they pull a lot of stuff. They pull a lot of mythology here from ancient biblical mythology and like Roman, Greek and Roman mythology, stuff like that. I'm not saying the Bible mythological. I'm just saying from the philosophy, the ideas behind those texts, they pull out of that for this.
Yeah, no, I definitely saw that there. I just thought it was more in line, and I hadn't seen it in so long. And so when I watched it, I was like, oh, I see what people are saying. But it's not as parallel as I thought it was. But it still is there, you know. I think what's great about Morpheus's character is that I feel like a term like magical Negro, I feel like why that's not a negative thing, but it's just like a role that constantly Black people are cast in as a magical Negro. I think with Morpheus though, there is that, but like he has his own mission. Like I know he's like giving, it feels more so like Karate Kid in a way, right? Isn't Karate Kid like you have Mr. Miyagi? Am I saying it right?
Miyagi.
But isn't like Mr. Miyagi like trains up like this person to like win? Like I feel like he plays more of a role of like it's his mission. Like his mission. I mean, I don't know, maybe that fits all the other like magical Negro things. I
think that's where it steps out more. The magical Negro is usually this, where it differs, and even from Karate Kid, because Karate Kid, Daniel just shows up in California and Mr. Miyagi just happens to be there living his own life, and then he decides to help Daniel, right? And that would fit a little more with it because Daniel's one going through problems with his life. And this one, Neo is he's kind of just fine on his own. He just has a weird feeling that things aren't what they should be. And it's Morpheus that is seeking him out, that's been seeking him out, that goes and plucks him and then introduces him, gives him the choice, but he introduces, once he makes the choice that he hoped he made, he then introduces him to this whole new world and explains to him that life is not what you think it is. And we need you to get this accomplished, right? He doesn't, so where it breaks from that, I think the typical trope is that Morpheus isn't just standing by, hanging out until this white man needs help with something.
Right.
And then he happens to step in, like he's actively pursuing this person, no matter who it is across the world, to find them so they can help liberate humanity.
Right. He has an active role throughout the whole film. Like he has agency. He's making decisions on his own. Like, yes, Neo plays into those decisions, but ultimately it's a bigger goal that he's trying to get to with Neo at the realm, you know?
Absolutely. A very active role.
Yeah, very active role.
The entire time.
And he's just great. Like he's very skilled. He's not any less. Like literally the only way that someone is better than him is if they're Neo, who's like the one, or these machines that are like built into the Matrix, you know? And even then he holds his weight with them, and you know, he's like mentally strong. Like when they're trying to get in his brain, they're like, why isn't he breaking down? And he's like, fighting.
Yeah. He's
like badass.
He's the shit. Like he's the one that even Neo is like, it's like Ninja Turtles and Master Splinter. He's like the one that's like, this is my like father figure. Like I have to save him because he matters more than I do. Right? That's what Neo says when they go to the Oracle. Tells him, sorry kid, but I can't tell you what you want to hear him. I know he thinks you're the one, you're not, yada yada. Then they capture Morpheus, and Neo's like, I'm going back in to save him. They're like, no, you can't. He said, you got to save. He's like, no, you guys don't understand. He matters more than I do. We got to get to him. And so, and that kind of also thereby helps fulfill the prophecy and everything else. But him not believing that himself, he just knows that he's there to play a role himself, which is to help liberate Zion by doing what he can, which is in his mind, saving Morpheus, right? Because he said he's more important than I am.
Isn't that a song by Lauryn Hill?
Zion, yeah, the joy, because that's her son. It's a song she wrote for her son when he was born, right? You knew that, right?
Something. Yeah, I knew that. This is Zion. I heard something in the light that scared me.
It's probably a boat.
Sorry. Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, isn't that Lauryn Hill song, Zion? Yeah, I thought Morpheus was, I just felt like he wasn't, I just hate calling him a magical Negro. I know that kind of fits like his role to a certain degree, but I just felt he was very active. Like it wasn't, yeah, it didn't feel like a throwaway. And I think Lawrence Fishburne is just such a presence on screen. Like he's that
far.
Yeah, he's so good in it. The other guys were Tank and Dozer.
Yeah.
And so their whole story is that they're brothers that are human made and they're from Zion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is the last human stronghold, like in the world that the machines are still out searching for, right?
Right. And they were cool. I think, they both had their like motivation, like, Tank was more of the like technical guy who was like about the business of like finding the one to take over. And Dozer, he seemed like he was technical, but he also
he's a muscle.
Like, fix things. Like he's the muscle
pilot,
fix things.
Mechanic.
Yeah, and he's getting things done. So Dozer didn't really have a lot of lines.
He didn't, but he played the lines he had well.
Yeah. Right? No, I think they blended in like nice. I actually think that, for characters that were low, like down a little bit more on the scale, they actually have more of a backstory than Homeboy that's from New Zealand and the other white girl. And even the guy that's a villain. Yeah, even the guy that's a villain, like you get more of a backstory from them. Like they're human made, they're from the place, they're there, like you get a little bit more story about them.
And it's great because in the sequel, you get even more story on their background stuff. You get to meet their wives and their family and everybody else in Zion, right?
That's really interesting.
And so you haven't seen the sequels? Oh, that's crickets? Is that what you're hearing right there? Because I hear crickets. Yeah. No. So and that's the thing is, it's a 2 and like 15, 16 minute 2 hour, 60-minute movie. So obviously you can't squeeze everything in there, but you do get to hear about their backgrounds here. And you see how excited Tank gets when he talks about Zion and how proud he is to be like pure human and all this. And when in the sequel, you get to actually see Zion. That's where Jada Pinkett Smith comes in and everything else.
Because originally supposed to be played by Aaliyah.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Did Aaliyah did Aaliyah actually start filming? Did they start filming with her in the
No, I don't think they did. I don't think they filmed with her at all.
But that was her role originally.
Yeah.
Jada after she
Which would have been dope. It would have been dope. Jada.
Don't even get me started. I love Aaliyah. Oh, don't even get me started.
It would have been dope. But you see Zion in the second movie. It's a very, one thing about the Wachowskis is that they are very keen on making their projects multicultural and multifaceted, and like they usually like sprinkle color all over their movies, like every movie I've seen from them so far, really, which is very impressive because you don't see that in a lot of filmmakers in Hollywood until their later projects. But these two have been doing it since, I think Bound was, I'm trying to remember. I don't think Bound was, but after that, Matrix and everything else just had a really diverse cast.
I think the only other project of theirs I've seen is Sense8, which was a Netflix show, which I really liked.
I still have to see.
I haven't finished it actually, but I've seen like the majority of the episodes of the first season. I really enjoyed it, and then I think they got a second season. But the way they see the world is really cool. Like even when I was watching the film, there is like, the special effects I think aren't bad. Like when you go back and watch it, it still holds up, I think, pretty well.
They do. You can tell it's late 90s, like early aughts special effects, but it's still, they broke ground with these, right? They're the ones that came up with that 360-degree camera with the array, where they did that bullet time and everything else. So, and the special effects were really groundbreaking at the time. They still hold up pretty well. I mean, it's not perfect now, but it still looks good for what it is.
Yeah.
But you never saw Cloud Atlas? I love Cloud Atlas.
No.
It's and that's got Hugo Weaving and Halle Berry, and
I've heard of it, I just haven't seen it.
but this one, I mean, Morpheus, he's a man, right? Like, even those trademark sunglasses he wears.
Yeah, that clip on the nose. That
Yeah. Like, and that leather, that crocodile skin coat with the tie. Like, for Halloween, I've seen a lot of Morpheuses out there.
I bet they hot.
And probably hot as hell.
Like at the club in a trench coat, sweating. What are you? I'm Morpheus. Give me a drink.
Give me a drink. Two drinks.
This leather. No, I thought the yeah, I think they do. I felt very good about his character. I mean, I think always, you know, the film definitely has people of color in there. I would say, like, just like Phil, I would say that it does feel more white than it feels black. Does that make sense? Like, it's not like like them being black had no play on the film.
No. And that's why I said the second movie, there's a little more to that, because there's more of their culture in Zion that you get to see. But in this movie, no, it's got nothing to do with it. It's about, like, just them being human and trying to survive. There's no specific black references or black isms. Even Morpheus is so stoic that, like, he's all about business. That's it. Yeah. Like, he's trying to get it done.
Like, it's definitely a film that if everyone who was black in it wasn't black, it wouldn't make a difference. I also don't necessarily feel like that's a bad thing, because the way that the film is set up is very is it dystopia?
Yes. Yeah.
It's another world. So it's like, in that world, it feels like in that world being race is like secondary, but I don't know. I feel like the focus is so much on, like, we're robots in a machine, that, like, the people's race and stuff doesn't, like, in this world, it seems in a way it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's secondary to survival, right? So this is because it's a dystopian film. I'm trying to think of any dystopian films where race was there are actually plenty where race is an issue, but it's usually the underclass or the people that are fighting for survival. And those dystopian films are usually the poor black, brown people, and the people that have wealth that are surviving are usually the upper class white people. But for the most part, a lot of dystopian films is just about survival itself. And usually race and culture are not very often a big part of it, because it's trying to overcome the literal or figurative machine, right? Whether it's money or some evil dictator or machines or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so with this one, I'm not surprised. I'm not mad at it, though, because there's so much
I'm not mad
more
at
to it.
I just think, as a running theme of, like, what we've talked about, it's like, so does your blackness play a part? Did it need to play a part? And I don't always think that having things specifically black culturally need to be in films, you know, because they sometimes just don't play, you know. But
yeah, it doesn't always have to be the part. We've already gone over this, right? It doesn't have to be in every film, because, you know, every film's different, telling different stories, and those characters, it's nice to see them be given the right to embrace their blackness if it still would be relevant to the movie, right.
And, like,
so I was thinking about that, like, no, go ahead
no I was just thinking about, kind of like, for instance, like Anaconda, right? Like, it was cool that, like, Ice Cube, like, was embodied, like, being a black man in the situation. It was great, but I think in that film, where everyone's on, like, a certain tone, it stuck out like a sore thumb, a great sore thumb, but it stuck out like a sore thumb. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, in this, like, if they wanted him to, like, embody, like, his blackness, it seems like it would stick out like a sore thumb in the film and, like, kind of mess up tone. You know, not that, like, you being black messes up tone, but it's like, that's not the focus. Like, the focus of Anaconda wasn't really, like, him being a black man in it, but they were like, it adds to, like, what would a black man do in it? But really, the whole tone was just, like, the snake and survival. And then they were like, you know what? Let's see what a brother would act like in this. You know?
Yeah.
So, does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I
Like if
mean,
Ice Cube
Anaconda.
wasn't there, like it would just play more serious. Probably he wouldn't stick out. Like if Morpheus had been more like embracing his blackness, it wouldn't have fit the tone, and it actually would have made me mad if they made him like clownery,
Oh yeah, yeah.
instead of
No,
like
and that's the thing. Something like The Matrix, there's an even more fine line when you start injecting the cultural background to some of the characters, because their mission is so important in this film that if that cultural background doesn't directly influence like their mission and the progress of the story,
yes,
if they focus, it's a fine line, because if they work too hard to interject the cultural background or that blackness of the characters in such a serious movie, and it doesn't have to do with the mission or the progress of the mission,
right.
then it risks venturing into that clownist or buffoonery, even because there's so much riding on in the story, there's so much riding on the mission itself, right? And that's why again in the sequel, I think they do a little bit better job with it, because you get to see their families and the foods and stuff like that, and their culture and everything else. So it makes more sense, especially given when you get to see that in the movie, in the sequel. But with this one, it's like mission critical. This was so mission focused because they knew what they needed to do, which was they had to find Neo, they had to save Zion, they had to defeat the machines, and there wasn't much time to even get to know the characters themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that it would be different if there were situations that he had been in, that the black characters had been in, where it was obvious they were ignoring their blackness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It, I think I can't think of we've had movies in the past where there were certain situations and we're like, yo, if a black person is in that situation that happens, that is not how we react. And that is not like where we've seen movies where it was clear that they were ignoring the blackness of their characters,
Yeah.
Like for instance, when we had the film 10 Things I Hate About You, like there was obviously ignoring of the fact that this girl who wants to be popular is also not the majority. She's the only black girl in a sea of white folks. Like there's a reason why like that dynamic would play in that situation, and they just ignored it. And it's like that's when it like stands out and you're like, okay, now they're ignoring the fact that this girl is black and how this plays into the story and what her character would think and all that. But in this film, that's not an issue because they weren't put in situations like that. And it was just it, like you said, it's very mission focused. So I really loved it. I thought it was really well done. There's actually more black characters than I remember in the film. Like there's four, and there is like the other diversity of like, the guy from New Zealand, the diversity of that really tall woman with short hair. That's just a look diversity. I support. They had her in all white. Yo, if I was one of them, I want the all white outfit too.
Oh, switch. Yeah,
oh,
with the blonde hair.
Yeah, the short blonde hair and the all white, and everybody else is in black. I was just like, yo.
Yeah,
that's a
like it is a look. She looked like the reverse Storm.
Yeah. It was so good. So
it would have been right there.
Quick question: if they had to have a film surrounding Morpheus, what would that film look like?
It's interesting because there were rumors that they were going to do a prequel featuring Michael B. Jordan as Morpheus, right?
Ooh.
Which would have been interesting. And I think that would have definitely delved more into his background. He says that the architect of the Matrix, like when it was first created, that one of the people that there was somebody born that was the one that was able to manipulate the Matrix, and he's the one that went around freeing people, and he's the one that freed Morpheus. So his movie would have been you good?
Yeah, I'm dog sitting, so the dog was staring at me, so I put out my hand to like pet him.
I thought you saw a bird flying around or something.
I'm very scary, but it was actually me and this dog.
Seeing I think a movie with Morpheus would be dope, because you get to see who this person, the first version of the one, was, and how they were able to free everybody, including Morpheus, and wake him up, red pill him. But I think it would have been good because you would have possibly been able to see what his Matrix background was, right? Where he came from. There'd be more space and time to do that, so you could see if he's out here like playing pickup ball on the basketball court or something, and he's able to do some weird glitchy stuff where he can kind of sink the ball from any corner and always make the shot or whatever. Like you'd be able to see small stuff that would still give you Matrix give you the Matrix, but give you Morpheus's background. I think would be
So
really
wait,
cool.
so the new trailer that just came out of The Matrix, Homeboy is in it. That's also in Candy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Yahya Abdul
Yeah,
Mateen, I think the second.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's playing with his fine self. He's playing Morpheus, but he looks so young as Morpheus. So is he playing like a younger
he
Morpheus?
he is playing a younger Morpheus. So for a while they had it. So this is where it gets interesting with the new one, because Lawrence Fishburne was the only one that wasn't invited back, right? Yes. And so as far as he knows, at least what they're telling us, what he's telling us is that they never asked him to come back for the second one. And yeah, that was my reaction. They never asked him to come back. He has no bad blood between them, but they never asked him to come back, and he is not in the second one. So for a while, they weren't making it clear whether or not Yahya Abdul was actually supposed to be young Morpheus. But when you see the trailer, it's pretty obvious he's supposed to be some form of Morpheus. Um, but you couldn't tell if it's like how he fits and why Lawrence Fishburne isn't there, especially because the other characters are older in the trailer. Neo and Trinity are older, but Morpheus is younger. So you're like, how does this work? So there's all sorts of fan theories right now going on online, and there's all sorts of like questions and ideas. But there's this popular theory now because when they made the movie, it was such an expansive world and such a popular movie that they made a video game that was supposed to be canon that had like side stories. That Animatrix movie I told you about was like 4 different animes or like animated stories within the Matrix. So there's all this backstory they wrote into it, and the video game has basically Morpheus's character dies in the video game. And so the idea, there's people that are saying, oh, because he dies in the video game, this isn't going to be the real Morpheus or whatever, because that's supposed to be canon. But who knows? I assume for some whatever reason that they might have been upset with Lawrence and just decided not to bring him back in. But he claims, he says, from what I read about him, there's no bad blood, and that he said he wishes the movie the best. He hopes everybody that enjoys it likes this one and it's very successful, and that it's as great as it looks like it's gonna be. He just says he wasn't invited to come back.
They gonna have to stop playing with our black icons,
Mm-hmm.
our black love stars icons.
I know.
They gonna
I'm
stop playing
hoping,
with them.
because I was like, ain't no way. I was like, should I boycott this because they didn't bring back Lawrence Fishburne? I love. I was like,
Yeah,
I
damn
love
it.
it. They didn't even ask him. That's just cold. I was like, Lawrence is the
Just watching
man.
on
Bro.
bootleg.
He's the man.
Just watching
Even
on
though I love
bootleg.
everybody involved in the projects, I was like, whatever, we'll see. But I'm
Bootleg.
thinking and hoping, there's a lot of theories that it may be a rope-a-dope where Lawrence is saying that because he actually does come back in the movie, but it's like old him versus young him or something. So
Oh,
but that they don't want you to, they just want to keep it a secret. I don't know. We'll see. It comes out in December, so it ain't gonna be far.
well, we'll see. All right. So, anything else? You got any other thoughts? Anything that stood out to you about the film that you want to mention?
I thought, I was asking myself what would it look like if there was Neo was black, right? If Will was actually it. And I thought about it. I love Will, right? Will's one of my favorites. I love Will. But I was thinking, especially since it was fresh off of Independence Day, I wonder if they would have had him be like full, like urban attitude Will, and not like he is in much more of his older movies where he's older and like more reserved, because Neo is very reserved and chill in this, right? Because he's still, so his mind is keep constantly getting blown. But Will always has snappy dialogue in his movies. He's always like he
could play serious. Like if you look at
can
like his coming the
Bagger
lack of a
Vance,
better word. Say it again.
Bagger Vance.
Not Bagger Vance. The first serious movie he played where he was the male prostitute.
Yeah.
He's very good in that, and he
Yeah,
disappears in that role. He can play. Will can play the serious roles.
I
Even
agree.
like Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah.
Like he's very serious in that. Like Will can do that.
Or 7 pounds.
Yes. I'd be curious what they wanted out of him. But if it was him, Will and like you said, Independence Day, all that, the tone would have been just
Very
so different. But if they had Will and the direction for him was more of his reserved, serious focus Will, then he could do that. But yeah, it would be completely different if it was Independence Day Will. But it would be good if it was like more serious.
If it was like, 7 pounds Will or whatever.
Right.
Which also, that led me thinking the soundtrack is very distinct for this movie, right? It was very popular when it came out.
The soundtrack brought me back. Maybe one of Where's the Goes. You know what I'm saying?
See, exactly.
It was
but
good.
I was like, exactly. I was like, man, this soundtrack had so many dope acts on it. And this soundtrack is also very much like, it's industrial, it's techno, which is all kind of the soundtrack for people in this like cyberpunk hackers culture, right? And so I was like, if Will Smith was the lead, would they have switched up the soundtrack too? Because
welcome to Zion in the yeah. Back to the land where the people are born and they don't come stuck at the back of the head.
There you go. Oh, look at you.
Yummy. Oh my God. That would have been interesting.
Look at you. Remixing it. That's the thing. I was like, would they have changed the soundtrack? Would Will have had a song on the soundtrack? Because like every movie he'd done with those, at least he like around that time he had a song on the soundtrack. Men in Black. When he passed on this to do Wild Wild West, he did the lead song with Drew Hill, right?
Yeah.
So and Stevie, yeah, it was a Stevie remake. So it was. So I was like, would it have been more of a hip hop soundtrack, more of an urban soundtrack? I'm like, shit, how different would that have been? And so it just got me thinking.
Yeah. I think,
but I'm glad they went this route.
Oh, totally. But I think Will, if they had kept what the vision was for this, Will could have played that part like that.
I think he could have too.
But if they had Will and then they wanted him to will it up, it would have been trash. I mean, it still probably would have been entertaining, but it wouldn't have been.
But it wouldn't have been the same.
And like, it just would have been. I don't like that idea.
The tone would have. I agree, and because we know studio execs, even we see with Wild Wild West, right? One of the biggest Wild Wild West. There was a producer involved that was like didn't know anything about producing good movies, and he ended up making like kind of wrecking the film, right? And it was because he had so much input on it. So we know executives have a lot of input on these big budget movies, and with Will involved, I have a feeling they would have wanted him to be Will, especially because that was like peak Will Smith, like fresh out of Fresh Prince, movie star Will Smith. And I have a feeling they would have, because it was a Warner Brothers movie with so much money on the line, I think they probably would have pushed to have him be more Will, so they could get that same, and it would have been a very different tone. Yeah,
because Keanu, like even when Keanu is in like comedic stuff, his tone is still kind of dry. Like, and when I think Keanu comedy, I think of like Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
And it's still dry. Like he's like kind of like a surfer. Like he's never like a ham. Like, so yeah,
I agree.
That's all I got.
Yeah, me too.
Steven, where can they find us on the interwebs?
They can find us on YouTube, on
Instagram.
It
froze up a little bit. It's okay. On the IGTV, on Instagram,
IGTV, YouTube, iTunes. I think Spotify now. Online, everywhere.
Look us up. Where podcasts can be found, listened, or seen. Yes. At Token Blacks in Cinema. Did I mess up?
Yes. Nope, that's it. Token Blacks in Cinema.
That's us. All right, y'all have a good day. Bye.
Bye.